Captain, we have them. We've established Transporter Lock, the Star Trek Discovery podcast. Join Ken and Sabriel each week as they explore strange new episodes, seek out new plots and new characters, and boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
Hello and welcome to Transporter Lock. This is your episode for July 2022. I don't know the number. We've been doing this for like 20 years, so I think this is probably episode 1000. Rough estimate. However, today I am not every day I am Captain Sabriel Maston, and today I am in the shuttle bay, joined by Chief Engineer Ken Gagney. Thank you for joining me, Ken.
Hello, Captain. I'm wondering why you've called us here to the shuttle bay.
Well, it's a long way up to the ready room, and this is where I was when saw recording time happened.
Were you on your way to or from somewhere via shuttle?
Classified. But it may or may not have anything to do with that Omega symbol you saw on the screens a little bit ago.
Ooh, yes. I'm not authorized to have access to that classified information, so I will allow you to do whatever it is you need to do.
That's right. You know, like this absolutely classified thing, we got to make sure it's on every screen so everyone knows something is up.
Very subtle.
Very subtle. I would also like to thank the engineering crew that you have for fixing my microphone since last time.
Hey, you put that work request in, and a month later we got to it.
You got to have that buffer time.
It's true. We build that in. Like when you need something done that will take 5 minutes, we say it'll take a month. That way we can choose any 5 minutes we want.
It's a miracle worker. That's how you do it.
That's how we look so good.
Well, we are here in the shuttle bay to talk about the latter half of the first season of Strange New Worlds.
Yes. I can't believe it's over already.
It feels like it just started.
I mean, the premiere episode was Cinco de Mayo, and the finale was July 7th. So that's 2 months and 2 days.
2 months ago. Yeah. So we were riding pretty high and mighty on the first half. How you feeling after the second half?
Yeah, I loved Strange New Worlds. I looked forward to it every Thursday, but that's true for all the Star Treks. But what I really liked about it, something I may have mentioned last time, was that we never knew what we were going to get. Like with Discovery, with Picard, we always know what we're going to get next week is a continuation of what we had this week. And with Strange New Worlds, like every week was a surprise. It was like a loot box, but of the good kind.
Yeah. Same feeling I had for the first half. The second half is the same. I loved it. It wasn't until the 10th episode I realized I should watch this with headphones on since I watch on my computer, because my speakers are not the highest quality. Like constantly I was like, are they just mumbling their lines? Are they mumbling? Why? I was like, oh, what's going on? And I always have to turn. I usually watch things with closed captioning, but sometimes I'll watch without to see if I can just do it, because I realize like I'll watch that instead of the actors. So I was like, but this week I'm like, okay, what is going on? And then I put my headset on. World universe of difference.
Yeah, I moved to a different Airbnb every month or two. I've watched Star Trek in a variety of states across this country, and I have found the experience varies dramatically just based on where I am and what their television setup is like. One of my favorite anecdotes that I may have shared on this podcast was when Star Trek Beyond came out in theaters, and I saw it in a theater that didn't have great audio.
Oh,
so
no.
there was that scene. What was it? The Jamestown, the ship, the old ship
Franklin.
that they found on the Franklin. Thank you. And to get the engines revved up, they had to like jumpstart it by pushing it over the cliff. And I didn't catch the audio where they said that's why they were doing it. And so I saw them try to take the ship off, and instead it started plummeting, and then it went under the tree line and you couldn't see it. And I actually screamed in the theater because I didn't know that this was all intentional. And my friend is next to me thought I was having a heart attack. And then the ship comes back up. I was like, oh my God. Oh. So in that case, the poor audio actually enhanced my reception of that scene. But it's not something I would wish on anybody.
It's not common. I mean, you know what? I do love the lo-fi thing, and I've got some vinyl records going now behind me. So there's something to be said about. I guess that's not really lower quality audio. It's just different quality audio. Right. Anyway, last time we had a kind of a haphazard talk about, let's just throw that's out there at the top of our head, what we're thinking about, who we're thinking about. This week, we're going to try a vague attempt at structure and talk about the 5 episodes of the latter half of the season in order. And so first up, I always want to say love lift us up where we belong, but no, it's lift us where suffering cannot reach. It's the one where we kill a child.
Yeah, this is the episode right after Spock Amok, which was an episode filled with hijinks. And it was a sharp contrast to have this episode come next, because most Star Trek episodes, there's some sort of a satisfactory resolution or a Deus Ex Machina or something that lets us, the audience, feel like this was that we're satisfied, or even like it was a Pyrrhic victory. Like we saw that somebody died, but it was for the greater good. And this case, I don't feel like that happened, and it left me really uncomfortable. And that's not a bad thing. It's just not what I expected.
Yeah, this is a very much a TOS original series. Those old scientists. Kind of way of an episode. Sometimes those had episodes where it's not a happy ending either. This one, I'm just like, okay, we're running out of time. We're running out of time. But like even in Next Gen, last 5 minutes, sometimes they'd whip out a solution that fix everything. And here, I'm like, we're running out of time. Oh, we still have time left, and they killed the kid, or put him in the battery. I'm like, whoa! I did not see that coming by the end until it happened. Like like it's getting closer and closer. Like, what's Pike gonna do? Never came.
Yeah.
I walked away going, oh, oof.
Yeah, and what I imagine was really haunting Pike at the end of that episode wasn't just that he couldn't do anything, but also that he had in fact contributed to that conclusion. He had delivered the kid. Like there were people trying to save the kid, and he, for not knowing any better, defeated their attempts and delivered that child.
I didn't think of it at the time, but now with this whole season behind us, I think maybe this was some kind of way to show Pike that, Pike's been pretty lucky with the whole mercy or talking thing, and like, is this one of our first instances of that we've seen of Pike like having failure? To what his ideas would be anyway.
I think so. I mean, I'm thinking back to Discovery Season 2. I'm thinking back to the short treks in which he's appeared. And I feel like, yeah, he usually gets his way. And I don't think that's unique to Pike, though. Like I was saying, I think
No,
most Star Treks are that way.
Yeah, I mean, there was the captain psychologist, season 2.
Oh, yeah.
She died. He was going to do it, and she's like, "No, I got this, Admiral."
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but that's an instance. But here's almost like
Admiral Cornwell.
Cornwell. Thank you. I knew there was a W in there. That's about it. Here he's gonna have to like, oh no, I put these actions into motion.
Well, we did see him at the end of Discovery Season 2, where he tried to save Cornwell. He said, let me be the one to defuse the bomb because I know my future and I don't die here. And she said, no, but other people might. And remember, we talked about that interesting cinematic technique where they moved the camera behind her head, and when it came to the other side, he was no longer smiling because he realized that she was right. So he didn't get his way that time. He had to accept his defeat in his ability to save Cornwell.
Yeah. In any case, this is if it's not the defining moment, it's another one to show him that sometimes you don't always get that victory at the end. Kirk would have started shooting phasers or something like that because he doesn't like to lose. But here, oof, it was a rough episode, not a rough ending.
Yeah,
emotional.
Yeah, the rest of the episode was interesting. It's now been a month since I saw it. I only saw it the one time, but we had a lot of other interesting characters. We had the child's father who said, I'm his father biologically only. And then despite trying to deny his emotional attachment to this child, he was nonetheless trying to save the child. I thought he was an interesting character. I didn't quite understand. So he and the kid beamed to the pirate ship, and then they both beamed back. Was that part of the plan all along?
I'm a little foggy, to be honest.
I mean, I think they wanted the pirate ship to be blown up so that everybody would think the child had died.
Yeah, no, because the kid beamed right to the elsewhere in
that little container.
Enterprise. Yeah, on the Enterprise.
But they must have known that the kid would be found eventually. And what did they think that Starfleet was going to do with it?
That's one thing we'll worry about in a minute. One fire at a time, right?
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, it just didn't seem like a very long-term solution.
Yeah. It's also where M'Benga was like, maybe I have a solution right here in front of me to help save my child.
Yeah, the level of medical technology in this society was unprecedented, and the fact that the Starfleet has no access to it is heart-wrenching, because how many lives could that save?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've seen that with the Prime Directive in other cultures, asking the Federation for help. And now they're on the side of it.
Yeah, they can't just go in and pilfer whatever they want. I mean, the Prime Directive, that's mostly about pre-warp civilizations.
You're still sharing technology.
Yeah, but certainly Voyager, when they were in the Delta Quadrant, they couldn't share their own technology, but they were certainly willing to accept other people's.
Like the slingshot warp that the Borg got. What was it called?
Transwarp?
Transwarp. No, it wasn't the transwarp. It was there's another word for it. Not the coaxial warp. The one that
the flux capacitor?
we saw the Borg Queen had it in Picard. That's how she could get away from ship to ship across the quadrant.
Oh, yeah. Season 1 of Picard.
Yeah, the technology came from the people in Delta Quadrant from Voyager. And that also tells us that the Borg assimilated them after Voyager left at some point. But anyway, that was another instance of technology sharing and the Federation.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the name of that device, a spatial trajector.
Mm-hmm.
A transporter with a theoretical range of 40,000 light years, simulated by the Sicarians, or from the Sicarians of the Delta Quadrant, a race introduced on Star Trek Voyager. Oh.
Wow, it sounds like something I just said.
Yeah, but no, you did clearly say that they were in the Delta Quadrant. I didn't realize that we saw them on Voyager.
Aha. I laugh because the podcast I'm listening to, they just started a new quote-unquote segment every time, because they have 4 people on their show. Every time one of them says something and someone repeats it, reading it off a website like 2 minutes later, like they call it like a read on air moment or something like that, because clearly the person wasn't completely paying attention. That wasn't what's happening here, but just reminded me of it.
Or maybe it's like that episode of We'll Always Have Paris of TNG season 1, I think, where they're stuck in a time loop and things happen over and over. It's like Sabriel said it, and then Ken said it.
Oh, this reminds me of that episode from season 1 of Next Gen.
Right. You too, huh?
Yeah, 4 aces.
Speaking of Paris, there's one episode of Voyager I can never remember the conclusion of. It's when Harry Kim wakes up on Earth, and he has no idea how he's there, and he says to his girlfriend or wife, he's like, "I have to get back to Paris," and she's like, "France?" And he's like, "No, Tom." And I can, even though I've read the Memory Alpha multiple times of why he was on Earth and how he got back to Voyager, I can never remember how it worked out.
Yeah, it was some weird mind thing.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
I'll go read Memory Alpha again after this episode, and then again a year or two from now.
All right, and then every time you need to think of it.
That's right.
Kid gets attached to a battery. M'Benga doesn't save his kid.
But what possible technology specifically requires the mind of a child? That is wow.
If I was, it's been a few weeks. I remember thinking, at least at the time, the impression of they found this. They don't know how it works.
No, I think they said their ancestors built it, but they don't know why it was built that way.
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh well, this is the way."
And it was such a punch to the gut when Pike asked, "Will he suffer?" and the woman said, "Yes." But then she justified it. She said, "Every society is built on suffering. The only difference is we acknowledge it. We look it in the eye." And I thought, I don't think that's true of Starfleet and the UFP in the future, because all these things disappear: poverty, war, famine, disease. But I do think it is a valid commentary on today's society.
Yeah.
Like, how many times do we walk past homeless people or avert our eyes when we're at a red light when somebody's holding up a sign saying, "Please help"? I do it all the time. I try to justify it by I'm donating to causes that will help these people, like shelters, as opposed to directly to the individual. But somehow that doesn't make me feel better because I know that these people are still suffering.
Yeah. Maybe it's also the commentary. Like we see the human side of the Federation. We don't know what the other member planets are going through. All hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And there are definitely some contradictories among the Federation that it tends to be very anthrocentric, which I'll get to when we talk about the season finale. But if we want to spend about 10 minutes per episode, then we should move on to the Serene Squall. Anything else you want to say about this child episode?
If you ever played Chrono Trigger, this whole society on floating things reminded me of the Kingdom of Zeal, where Scala was from.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought. I tweeted that out when I watched that episode.
Have you played Chrono Cross?
I did, and as I take my headset off to show Ken, because no one else can see this, I got the physical copy of it on Switch, shipped over from Japan.
Wow, so you're a fan then?
I never did finish it the first time around, but because I was very much looking for a sequel to Chrono Trigger, and it was only technically it and not actually it.
Do you know the way in which it's related?
Parallel universe, something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. So, or alternate universe, not parallel.
I won't spoil it for you.
But I'm going to go play it again once I get done with the current games I'm playing.
I remember finishing games.
All right. All right. So we are done talking about the one where we kill a kid and put him in a battery. And now we're going to talk about the Serene Squall, where we have Captain Angel takes over the Enterprise while Captain Pike takes over a pirate ship.
This was very possibly my favorite episode of the entire season.
And go ahead and tell us why.
Well, I feel like a complete dumbass because the reason I loved the episode was the character of Angel when she first showed up and we didn't know that she was a pirate. She struck me as so authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just the way she moved through the world, the way she interacted with people, I felt like this is somebody I could actually meet today. Like, there's a certain artificiality of characters on Star Trek because they live in a world that is not ours. And so they've adapted to this environment and these circumstances that we have not. Angel felt like somebody who has done that while also being from our world, like just the way she talked to people. I loved seeing somebody like that on Star Trek, and I can't remember the last time I did. And that's why I felt so betrayed when she wasn't at all authentic.
She was not Dr. Aspen. They were Captain Angel. Pronoun switch and everything.
Yeah. Was that my mistake, or were they doing that?
No. When it was Dr. Aspen, she was going by she.
Okay.
And then when it went to Captain Angel, it was they.
Okay.
Because it was all part of their. It was all part of their illusion.
Okay.
That was definitely an intentional part on Dr. Aspen / Captain Angel. All I could think of was like something's up about this character, but I can't figure out what. And I didn't look at my notes for this one that I had. I was talking to some people. I kind of saw it coming, but not like what was going to happen. Just because like, what is up with this character? Something seems off. Why do they know Spock so well? Or at least Spock's difficulties. I did not put it together why or who they had known so closely until that epic reveal in the last few seconds.
Oh yeah.
I did not see Cybok appearing.
No, actually, now that you mentioned it, when I was thinking about this episode, I forgot about that too. What I was thinking of was in an abstract fashion, the whole episode was about dual identity. Spock grappling with, is he human or is he Vulcan? And, receiving the advice that you're not a product of genetics or of geography. Why do you have to be one or the other? Maybe you're something else. Maybe you're something more. Maybe you are not what you were identified as at birth, which is a human Vulcan hybrid, which is really important. And then we see Angel, manifesting a similar bifurcation, where we see, like they said, some of the things they said to Spock were true, even if the identity of the person saying them was not. And so there's a lot of comparison and contrasting between these two characters in this episode.
Besides the actress being trans, it was just a huge trans allegory. Right through there. Similar to much more on the nose than Una and being Illyrian. It was kind of setting up earlier. Here we get right there, we have the duality of being of multiple worlds, whether it be of your race or your identity. I know that speaking to some other trans friends of mine who are also of mixed heritage, spoke to them as well on the commentary. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. I loved that the whole Captain Pike subplot of reclaiming a pirate ship is old hat to them that we don't even need to see it happening. We just see clips of it happening, talking about it, ingratiating with the crew, and all of a sudden, in the final scene, hey, we got the ship. Can you rescue us? It was just so much fun. We don't need to see any of the process. We just see a snapshot here and there of it happening.
Yeah, I love that Pike and Una already had a code for how to do this because they've done it before. And I love that we have, in multiple episodes this season, seen Captain Pike cooking for his crew. And this is not just some interesting characteristic that fleshes him out as a person. It's actually useful to the plot in this episode. And I thought that was really neat. Kind of like how we've seen characters fencing or singing, things that wouldn't normally come up in a day-to-day operation of a Starfleet officer. And here they do.
I love this kitchen set in his quarters so much, and how much they use it this season for gatherings. Later on in this episode, we use it to have a debriefing or a mission briefing, or just to talk about our problems. It's so good. It's the perfect thing I didn't realize Star Trek was missing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to jump too far ahead, but there was that scene where, as you just said, a mission briefing, and La'an is like, "Can you please pass the and then they give her the cheese, and all while she's talking about the mission."
It's like it adds a sense. The last time we kind of really saw this kind of thing, I think, was Enterprise, where they had some humanity. Once in a while, the crew would be just in their Hawaiian shirts on the bridge,
right?
Or they'd have captain's mess, things like that, where we get to see the human side of things. And for years, with intent, they kind of dodged that, or you'd only see those in private moments, like Cisco cooking for Jennifer and Jake. We're here in a professional setting, we still get to see it, and it adds so much, and I just love it.
Yeah, and even just giving the apron to Spock and saying, "Hey, Spock, do you want to do the dishes?" He's like, "Oh, yes."
It's so good. So that we got to have him do the kitchen thing for a group of hungry pirates eating Orion slop. It was really good. It was done well.
I have a question about, in the first half of the episode, when they're caught in that asteroid force field.
It looked Tholian, didn't it?
It did look Tholian. That's what I suspected. But I also have a question because, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting their name when they weren't Angel.
Dr. Aspen.
Dr. Aspen, thank you. So Dr. Aspen, at one point, said, "That was not the pirates. If it had been, you'd be dead now." So Dr. Aspen was lying when they said that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the other question I have now is, Dr. Aspen was also caught in that field, and Spock had a 50-50 shot of shooting the right asteroid. So Dr. Aspen might have died in the same trap that they had set.
It's possible, but to me, it's just like Dr. Aspen, Angel knew Vulcans. I think they had a good idea what was going to happen.
Okay.
Or maybe there was a fail-safe that they had in backup.
That makes sense. I like that. Thank you.
Our evil, proverbial mustache-twirling villains always have a backup plan. They always had the great escape.
Yep. A transporter ring necklace.
They had that escape right there.
Right.
Being to their ship. So it was right there. They had it the whole time.
Yep.
Spock kissing Nurse Chapel on the
Oh my
bridge.
god, that's one of
Incredibly
the most
praying.
passionate kisses I've seen in
It
Star
was
Trek.
so good. It was so good. Um, I mean, it worked on Angel. Not seeing that coming at all. Poor Chapel. Having heartstrings played with.
Oh,
No, it's not intentional playing with, but
I know,
having
I
them
know.
tugged.
It's a tease.
Because clearly Spock feels something there too,
Yeah.
whether he knows it or not.
Yeah, I mean, the
Uh,
episode started by Chapel saying to him, "No, like, why do you need to pay more attention to me?" And Spock says,
mhm.
"Because you are charming and I am missing it." She's like, "Ah, you're learning. Good." And even though they were being playful, there was a little bit of truth to that too.
Yeah. Uh, Christine and Spock, man, I wish they could get together.
I'm sure that fanfic exists.
Hmm?
Uh,
In droves.
And
But sorry,
what do you think is the future for Cybok?
I think he's going to be trying to find a god.
Well, certainly he does that in Star Trek V, but do you think we'll see him on
Oh,
Strange New Worlds?
no. Honestly, they left it. I think they left it intentionally vague. So if they want to bring it back to him, they can. Like in the nature of television creation, when they were making that episode, they probably didn't know they had a season 2 yet. And so Captain Angel definitely has the possibility of coming back. Cybok, maybe. But then it has to be a situation where Uhura's not there. It has to be a situation where a bunch of people aren't there because they don't know that Spock has a half brother in
Yeah.
in Final Frontier. If I recall correctly, it honestly has been a bit. So maybe the actors don't or the characters don't pretend that they've forgotten.
Yeah, but they've done that before, kind of like how when Chekhov beamed down to
Yeah, they make
Study
mistakes.
Alpha 4 in Star
Yeah.
Trek 2, and he had never met Khan before. But
Uh,
yeah, Angel strikes me as having the same potential as Saffron did in Firefly. She
yeah.
was a recurring villain, and I'd like to see Angel come back too.
I liked Saffron even more than because it's Christina Hendrick.
I'd never seen her in anything else at that time, so
Ah.
that's what I associate that actor with. Oh. I may have
um,
cut you off. Was there something else about this episode you wanted to
no,
say?
I if there was a forgotten, but Angel, I look forward to seeing Captain Angel again.
Yes.
Maybe Captain Angel is Pike's mud.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, Mudd has already shown up like 3 times in Discovery and Short Treks.
Apparently,
And
the actor has written to the crew like, "Hey, if you ever want Harry Mudd on again, you know where to find me."
that'd be fun.
I remember seeing that article or story a few weeks ago.
Yeah, because he showed up twice in the first season of Discovery and not since, other than Short Trek. So he's never really met Pike.
Yeah, that we know of.
That I would love to see that. Shall we talk
Um,
about the Elysian Kingdom?
yeah, if you were done with the Serene Squall and just see James Keitel, who is amazing on Twitter, I would suggest following her. The Elysian Kingdom, the one where we go to the fairy tale.
Yeah, what do you think?
I love this so much. And I had an unfortunate moment where the dramatic moment at the end was interrupted by someone coming in while I'm watching it. So like the whole 40 minutes of tension building up to this moment, and then right when it's starting, had to stop. I just killed it all. So I can't wait to watch it again. But I loved this episode so much, especially I loved Ortegas in their little swashbuckling Adol, was it?
You know who really loved that character was the actor.
Yes. She had so much fun.
She wrote on her Instagram that she's like, wait a minute, I get to play Dungeons & Dragons and Star Trek, and I'm a sir, not a ma'am or a lady? This is everything I've ever wanted in my entire life in one episode.
It was so cool. I love them so much.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole little fling with Una, our huntress.
Yes.
What was the character's name?
I think it was just Huntress.
Nope. Everyone on the Memory Alpha article has Ortegas Adya, Pike Routh, Uhura Nev, but I don't see the one for Una because she was actually not in the episode much.
Right. She only showed up at the end.
To save them and to have a little Zamira. There we go. We did
Okay.
Zamira, the Huntress. Huntress of the Force. Well, if you led the Force so much, why don't you marry it? Kind of thing. From Ortega. So it was so good.
Oh, we know each other very well.
Oh, my heart was pattering.
Aw.
I blabbed on and on about it. About before the dramatic finale. What did you like about it? Did you like it too?
Well, let me tell you one thing I really liked and one thing I really didn't. The thing I really liked was that these actors were having so much fun. Like
it was
seeing,
obvious.
yeah, like seeing Pike as a squirrely, cowardly little man, and also where the heck did all his hair go for this episode? It's just very impressive. La'an was having a ton of fun in that
with her
floofy outfit.
With her real dog. That is the actress's dog, Runa.
I didn't know that. Well, that's one way to make your dog famous. Wow.
There was a video of her twirling on Instagram in the dress, and
that's really cute. I wish Chapel had more airtime, but that's true for every episode because I think she was having fun too. Hemmer was obviously having a lot of fun, even though he was in character mostly.
Hell, he was hamming it up.
Oh yeah,
with the power of the magic of science.
Yeah. The thing I didn't like though, it is Next Generation had Robin Hood, DS9 had James Bond, Voyager had Bride of Chaotica. We all have these Q/holodeck episodes where the characters are acting out of character and they have to take on roles that aren't their own. Part of the fun of seeing that is that we've had multiple seasons to get to know the characters so that there's a sharper contrast to when they are out of character. Here, we get to see that in the very first season of Strange New Worlds. And it's somewhat ameliorated by the fact that this show has done a really good job of introducing us to the characters. At the same time, though, I can't help but wonder how much more fun it would have been had it come a season or two later.
Further in, I see what you mean. I could see that. To me, like we have gotten to see these characters so much to me that it kind of stood out right away.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see that. I can see that point of view too.
You made a remark earlier that I wholeheartedly agree with, which is I sometimes feel like the producers were making this season as if it was the only season of the show.
Yeah.
They were like, we need to do a Robin Hood episode and we may not get another chance, so let's do it now.
I mean, I would put it that way. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, it's possible too. But then we do know that I think they just finished season 2 filming. Yep. So, and we are hoping for season 3.
Yep. But I think it's also that mindset that we may not get another chance to do this, which is why we had the dramatic ending that you were referring to.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. Rukia, and the Nebula man, Mabenga, having to let his daughter go.
Yeah.
He had no way to help her.
I mentioned in our last podcast that I didn't expect that this aspect of that character would be brought up so soon. And now I feel like they did that because they also felt the need to resolve it in the same season.
It's possible. I mean, in the past we talked about the last time we talked about are they taking too long to address this? And now in retrospect I think no, I think it was just right. It was 8 episodes. I mean, and they brought it in episode 3. It was only 5 episodes later it was resolved.
Yeah.
I think they actually ended up doing it just the right amount because they also brought it up 2 episodes ago in the one about the boy battery. Because he was playing with her, beamed her out, and played with her. It turned out it was just the right amount to me of her storyline.
And are you, regardless of the timing from an audience perspective, are you satisfied with the resolution for that character?
Oh, of course I want her to live her life with her dad, but you take what you can get, right? Like what life throws at you. And now he can visit her whenever he wants, as long as you have leave. But she'll be there. I think it worked. I thought it was beautiful.
I wondered why the Cloud said you can leave, but she will get sick again without me. Well, why doesn't the Cloud go with you? Why is the Cloud limited to that point in space?
Oh, I mean, is there things why is a nebula there? I mean, I don't think we're meant to try to answer that.
No. And there probably is an answer, but these are the questions that the situation brought to mind. For example, we saw the child, Rukia, much older just a moment later. if the rate at which she is aging is linear, which we have no reason to believe that it is, then if her father, Dr. Mbenga, ever goes back to visit her, she'll be like a gajillion years old.
There was something in the episode she said like I think she had chose that or something like that. I don't remember exactly. Rukia named her friend after her mother, Deborah. That was the nebula is named Deborah.
The Deborah Nebula. The Debrula.
Let's see. It tickles when she's taken away. Happy and safe now. It doesn't mention here, but I'm pretty sure she mentioned it in the episode.
But also, all the adventures she's having, are those adventures in the nebula?
Yeah. Apparently, there's some kind of extra level or extra planar or demi-plane or something like that where we can't know because it is very alien to us.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Deborah is the only consciousness with which Rukia can interact in the nebula, then she basically has to spend the rest of eternity with her best friend. And I have multiple best friends, and I think if I had to spend eternity with any one of them, there would be blood.
When you live outside of time, you might not notice. It's hard, but it's so alien to us.
It is.
To me. We can't know. To me, it's just one of those unanswerable things. If it was a linear thing, like you mentioned, like, yeah. Pandemic clearly showed, like, some of us, can only handle so much time with other people.
Exactly,
even our own kids, by understanding other people's stories.
Yep.
And so, this one to me is, like, the unknowable outside of time, like Q.
Yeah. These are questions that if I was Rukia, I would want answers to before saying yes.
She was also, like, 8.
I know. But I also remember there was a time travel movie, which if you gave me a moment, I could probably look up the name of it. But like they had to go back in time and change something, but they went back in time to a point that they had already existed. And I said to my family, like, wait, that doesn't make sense. They should be bumping into themselves if they were to do that. And even though I was like 8 years old, my family was like, just shut up and enjoy the movie. I was like, wow, thanks for encouraging my interest in temporal mechanics.
Oh, man.
Well.
And now, all these years, decades later, you are the leading researcher on a time travel project, and you're like, wish you would have had someone to philosophize about this 30 years ago.
I'm going to go back in time, now that I've perfected time travel, to the person who's told me to shut up, punch him in the face. So
and also, you can answer your own question.
That's right.
You're in the same space.
I remember somebody showing up and answering my question. I've always wondered who that was. It was me.
Wow.
Mind blown.
I love this episode. I love the costumes. I love the fun they had. I love the picture of the Enterprise as a fantasy kingdom. And I love that it was written by Benny Russell, which opens up so many more questions.
Remind me who that is. Wait, Benny Russell?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about somebody real.
No, it was written by, the alter ego of Captain Sisko.
Right, of course. In Far Beyond the Stars, one of the best DS9 and best Star Trek episodes of all time.
Yeah, and if you don't know, dear listener, there was talk of making the finale of DS9 part of the story, and basically the entire DS9 story, one of Benny Russell's stories.
Ugh. Kind of like the end of Newhart.
Or General Hospital and the Dome.
Or Who Shot JR?
I don't know.
It was all a dream.
Oh, was that a dream too?
Yep.
Okay. There was talk, but anyway, Benny Russell, so that opens up a bunch of questions, but it's also a fun little nod.
Wow, the book that he was reading, The Kingdom of Elysian, was written by Benny Russell. How did I miss that? Yeah. That's amazing.
In episode 3, when we find out about his daughter, Mbenga is reading a book, and it turned out it's this book. I didn't catch that until my rewatch of like a couple weeks ago. After Legion Kingdom, I went back and watched that episode, and he's reading this story to his daughter, Rukia.
There was a TOS novel, the episode "The City on the Edge of Forever," So McCoy went back in time, and as Spock and Kirk are still standing in front of the Guardian Forever, they're able to pull out historical records from the alternate timeline that McCoy accidentally created.
Mm-hmm.
And so they realized they had to go back and change that. Well, there's a TOS novel that is set in that alternate timeline of when McCoy went back in time, but before Spock and Kirk went back in time. And at one point, McCoy is living in the South, which is where he's from, and he's driving home to his little house out in the country, and he sees some guys beating up a traveler because he has a different skin color, and he pulls over and interrupts it, and he shoos the white people off, and he helps the traveler. And he says, "So, let me take you back to my place, get you all fixed up. What's your name?" And the guy says, "Benny Russell."
Huh.
So, that even though that timeline ultimately didn't persist, it was nonetheless real. It wasn't a fantasy. And so, at least in that memory beta novel, Benny Russell was a real person.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So between that and this book, I think we have sufficient evidence to suggest that the delusion, quote unquote, that Sisko was having was actually him projecting himself into the past or just remembering somebody else's life.
Or it's all part of the Benny Russell extended universe.
Yes, the BRCU, the cinematic universe. That's what I want. So.
Any more you want to say on the Elysian Kingdom?
Probably, but we should keep moving. Wait.
It's really good.
Oh, wait.
Next
I'm
up,
sorry.
yeah.
You know what? I just realized. Oh gosh, the Serene Squall, which was 10 minutes ago. I forgot to. There's one more comment I forgot to make.
Yeah, go for it.
Maybe I'll copy and paste this. It had one of my favorite lines from the entire season. And that line was when Pike tried to talk like a pirate. And and number one said, "Please stop." Just please stop. I mean, first of all, that was potentially a very serious situation they found themselves in, with both ships being overtaken. And he jokes about it at the end. And that moment, I watched it with former guest of the show, Velda. I turned to her and I said, I think I've even asked you, Sabriel, this last time. Can you imagine any other Star Trek captain behaving in that fashion? Can you imagine Kirk or Picard or Sisko talking like a pirate to their number one, to their first mate?
I can picture Tom Paris going, "Arr, Captain."
Yes.
Be gone, and that's it.
Yes, but not Janeway. Maybe Archer, but not Lorca.
Saru being like, "Captain, I believe the proper term is R."
Right. There you go.
That was so good. You could see the smirk on Ortegas and even Una's face a little bit before she goes, "Oh."
Yeah, it's like a dad joke. You love.
It was so good.
You think it's funny, but you can't let them know that.
Speaking of, you gave me a perfect segue. Speaking of dad jokes, All Those Who Wander, the Predator Aliens episode of Strange New Worlds opens with the cooking scene briefing, and we get Dad Node Pike, even with his tongs, going snip, snip, snip.
Snip, snip, snip.
With the tongs, he goes. Tick, 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 tick. That is such a dad joke meme on the internet of dads. Whenever you get the tongs, you have to go tick, 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 with these tongs. You have to.
I didn't know you had to do that.
You have to. It's just ingrained in humanity. When you pick up like grilling tongs or cooking tongs, you go. Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah, you have to click them together.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so he did it here. It was total dad mode as he's cooking in the kitchen here.
So what did you think
of Predator Aliens episode? I loved this episode. I'm not usually a fan of horror.
There was no Predator in this episode, was there?
No,
just aliens.
They were totally Predator mode because of the Predator mode with the whole. They had the
like infravision.
Infravision, yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, they had that. It was a combination of the two.
Okay, it was like a Pralien.
Yes, or an Alitor.
Okay, I see where you're coming from. That makes sense. So you loved it.
I got a kick out of this. Like I knew everything that was going to happen except for someone's death at the end. But like the instance, like, oh, you're named. Goodbye.
He just got promoted too.
I had a lot of fun with this. I was scared even though I was watching it at 7:30 in the morning. Good stuff. Did you like it?
we talked about how an experience of Star Trek can vary based on the quality of the audio. I think the quality of the video may have diminished my enjoyment of this episode because there were times when it was so dark, I had no idea what was going on.
Oh, no.
Like the scene where Spock unleashes his anger and then walks up to a Jeffries tube and then just starts firing into it. I'm like, what is happening here? I can't see anything.
Oh, no. That's a bummer.
Yeah. And also, I think there are some quick cuts that also exacerbated things. So I was underwhelmed by this episode.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Maybe getting the right atmosphere of having the room dark with a good quality TV could change things for you. Or now that you know what's going to happen, maybe it'll change things for you. Maybe not. I got to kick out. I'm not usually the biggest on horror and scary things, but here I had a lot of fun with this. Gorn, we actually got to see them.
We'd seen them before, right?
We haven't seen them in Strange New Worlds yet, though.
Oh, true, but we saw them on TOS and Enterprise.
Yeah, we saw the bad CGI, what was cool then, but now it's terrible. And we also saw a rubber suit guy, but now we get to see a good graphics version. Actually, no, they had some actual models that they were using too.
What do you model a Gorn after?
I don't know, but an actual physical model to help record. And so that added to it all, made it much more real instead of guy in a rubber suit. But we got to see like a crashed Sombra class, which I love. Mabenga's like, yeah, they use some extra parts from Constellations to make that, so they could just use the same set. We get to see what La'an was talking about earlier in the season about having people as exacts, just gross. Oh, kids just spurting out, attacking each other. Oh, and the whole like, oh man, I almost lost an arm. Ah! For me, I didn't think he was gonna die there. I thought he was gonna die a little bit later. But because both tropes exist in scary movies, and so I guessed the wrong one. So it surprised me when he died. Lieutenant whatever, Lieutenant gonna die. Even though I knew he was gonna die, it surprised me when he was gonna die.
Now for the mission briefing, we already talked about how they were in the kitchen, and they had 2 simultaneous priority 1 missions. So they split the party, which you should never do. The mission that the Enterprise went on, wasn't that to the same space station as in the Trouble with Tribbles?
K7, yep.
Okay, I thought I recognized that. That was cool. That was a nice reference for those of us who get it, and for those who don't, it doesn't matter.
Maybe they're checking into the Quadratriticale?
Sure, let's go with that.
It's pretty close to that. I'm pretty close to that without looking it up.
And also, I mean, clearly, as you already said, this is a homage to Alien in many ways. In Alien, whatever species gets infected does impact what comes out. Mm-hmm. And they basically said the same thing here, too. Depending on the alien species that gets infected, that'll determine the incubation period.
Yeah, so very similar, but slightly different.
Yeah, I thought it was too similar for my tastes.
Yeah?
But, I'm also not a science fiction writer. I don't know what they could have done differently. And they clearly did something different with how people get infected. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I didn't expect just getting spit on.
Right?
It would do it. And La'an didn't say nothing?
Maybe she didn't know, or maybe she had blocked that memory?
Yeah, she might not have known how. She was also like 12, 13 when she was on the planet. So it should have not necessarily meant, maybe saw how it happened. We just don't know. But knew the result of.
Yeah. So shall we talk about that surprise ending?
I did not see. Well, up until La'an said we still have a problem. That's the instant I'm like, fudge.
La'an said that?
Yeah, because everyone's like, yeah, we got them all. And La'an's like, we're not done yet. That's
How did La'an know?
Because, exactly. La'an knew. Well, La'an was with Hemmer. There's some wibbly wobbly here because we were just talking about how does she know? Why didn't she say anything?
Oh, okay.
But maybe she noticed the reaction that Hemmer was having, the itching and the discomfort. maybe not the how. And that's how she knew that there was more coming. Yeah, oof. That made me cry.
I, again, feel like they were writing this as if this was the only season they had. They killed off a main character in the first season, which I can't remember the last time that happened since TNG killed off Tasha Yar.
Uh-huh.
And on one hand, I want to say Hemmer was one of my favorite characters, but that's also true of almost everybody on this show.
Right.
But I feel like he brought a very different energy to the show than anybody else. Like everybody else on the show, for the most part, is pretty young, idealistic, and enthusiastic, and he's none of those things.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of the like the uncle or the grandparent, somebody who this is not his first tour. He has seen some crap, and he's here to advise the younger generation, both, on how to be a good Starfleet officer, but also how to be a person. Like his final words to Uhura. I love their interactions from beginning to end in this season, and especially in this episode.
Having him tied to a character like Uhura from the start helped cement him like as a really great character.
Yeah, and I felt like he had a lot more to teach her and the rest of the crew. I don't know why they felt the need. Like when Kes left Voyager, what I read the reason is because the writers didn't know what else to do with the character.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how could that be true for Hemmer after just one season?
It's like here they must have had a plan the entire time. That's a bummer, but it's a bummer. But we got plenty of development out of him, more than much of the Discovery crew, because he was tied so closely to someone we know. Thankfully, it didn't feel like Arium in Discovery.
Right. No, I agree with that. But it's also disappointing. Like I have told so many people how happy I was that a show that exemplifies infinite diversity in infinite combinations, IDIC, would engage in authentic casting by having a blind character played by a blind actor.
Uh-huh.
And I can still say that they did that, but I can no longer say, hey, check out this show. That character is actually blind.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So that was disappointing.
Not like Geordie blind.
Right. However, this sort of calls into question for me, does Strange New Worlds need to go the same direction as Star Wars Rogue One? Like, none of these characters are going to be on the Enterprise in 7 years, except for Spock.
And Uhura.
And Uhura, right, of course, I'm sorry. So, do we need to make something happen to all the other actors? Or to the characters, at least?
I don't think so. I think that, there's so many years there where they can go off into their own ships. Maybe the Farragut, for example. Or
yep, we saw that with La'an.
So, like, I don't think they're writing themselves into any hole or skirting along the side of it.
Yeah, I don't know, because at the end of this episode, we also saw La'an leave the ship. She needs a temporary leave of absence for helping that kiddo find her home.
Uh-huh.
And then, not to get too far ahead of things, but we also saw, of course, number one, get arrested at the end of the next episode. So that is like 3 senior bridge officers who are all now gone. And I keep thinking about at the end of Deep Space Nine, like we lost Cisco, we lost Odo, we lost O'Brien, we lost Worf. And so even if the show had been picked up for another season, that would be really hard to bring everybody back together. It's not like in the TNG movies where only Worf is gone and we need to come up with an excuse to get him back.
Uh-huh.
And so with Strange New Worlds, they're just casting the cast, no pun intended, to the winds. And how are they going to get them all back together for the next season? Well, with Hemmer, they don't, but it just gets harder and harder with every episode.
To me, the interesting part is I don't see that as a downside. I'm excited to see how they're going to get everyone back together. Because La'an was a temporary thing. She's in like, she's not resigning. Cadet Uhura, she's going to go back there. We don't know how long season 2 is going to be after season 1. There's a lot of time where we can play around. So for me, the excitement is like, all right, man, everyone's scattered to the wind. I can't wait to see how they get back together. Similar to Lord of the Rings at the end of Fellowship. Everyone is going their own separate ways. How we're going to get the crews back together. And they might just go, first episode, season 2, like, wow, that sure was an interesting 2 years. Now let's go find some more Strange New Worlds. I don't think they're going to do that, but see, so to me, the only bummer is that we lose Hemmer, and I wish we could get more of him. But also that he impacted us so much in his like 5 or 6 episodes he was in out of 8. It really is a testament to the actor and the writers for making us feel so much for him.
You bring up a good point. Discovery no, really just Discovery always picks up right where the last season left off, at least for the first 3 seasons. Strange New Worlds doesn't have to do that. They have 7 years until the accident. For some reason, I thought it was 10, but it's only 7. And the opening sequence says it's a 5-year mission. So there's time to play with. They are, like, I think maybe the reason they chose 7 years is because no Star Trek show has ever run longer than that.
That's a good cut. I haven't put any thought to it. I like that.
But it also means that they can't skip time. If they want to use all 7 years, then they have to use all 7 years.
I mean, and they can also just stay in this 1 year. Years are pretty long. They could have 2 seasons take 1 year.
That's true. So
because they're going to get that old that quickly.
Especially with just 10 episodes instead of the usual 22 that we used to get.
Yeah. Well, speaking of terror and horror.
Yeah.
Should we jump ahead to Equality of Mercy?
Yeah, the final episode.
The one about the Romulans. Wow. Like, Ken was here in North Dakota. I mean, in the Shuttle Bay months ago. And I can't remember the impetus, but we just watched Balance of Terror on a whim.
TOS is the only Star Trek show I have not seen every episode of. And I think I had mentioned to you when I was visiting you that, I've never seen the episode that introduced us to the Romulans. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. And after we finished watching, I was like, oh, for some reason I thought this was the same episode where Kirk dresses up as a Romulan. That's the Enterprise incident.
The Enterprise incident.
I still haven't seen that either.
Oh, you gotta go steal that cloaking device.
But that means that of all the episodes in Star Trek, of which there are 800 plus, of all the episodes of TOS I haven't seen, which is probably half, like we chose to watch 2. I forget what the other one was, but we watched Balance of Terror, and 6 months later they retell that exact story, and I could not have been better prepared.
It was perfect, and one of my partners is going through Strange New Worlds with me, and they have not seen Balance of Terror, so I'm going to introduce it soon, but not immediately before, because we're only on 3 episodes in, or 4 episodes in, so I'm like, I got to squeeze in Balance of Terror now.
I saw somebody say on Twitter that they had seen Balance of Terror before. After watching Strange New Worlds, they went and rewatched it, but they wish they had watched it again before watching Equality of Mercy. So I think you have the right plan there.
Cool. Yeah, because we got Pike. One burgundy movie era uniform, Pike comes to visit him. That was just, whoa!
When I saw that uniform, I was like, is this Kirk? Is this an old Kirk? And it wasn't. It was old Pike.
No. Oh, they did so well with... I thought they did so well with making Pike, like, 20 years older. He even had slower movements, but not quite. It was so well done. Just visually. Beyond the whole episode. I did not see this coming. I avoided... The only thing I knew about this episode going in was that Pike met Mott. And that's the only thing I previewed of this episode I had seen. And then afterwards, everyone is like, don't watch anymore if you can't help it. Go into this episode without knowing a thing. And I'm so glad I did. Because, wow.
At what point did you figure out this was Balance of Terror?
The wedding, right away.
The wedding was my first clue. I was like, wait a minute, haven't we seen this before? And especially like a young man and a young woman. It was when the siren went off and the wedding got interrupted. I was like, we definitely have seen this before. And at the end, they reversed who died.
Yes, she died instead of him.
Yeah.
But man, the whole playing with lighting to do it just like you did in the original series, the whole when they find out the Romulan looks like a Vulcan, they zoom in the original series, they zoomed in on Spock and he raises his eyebrow. They did it again here. We get to see Kirk have his same kind of discussions with Spock, but over the view screen instead. Oh, it was so well done, and I loved it so much.
Speaking of lighting, our former guest of the show, Kay, said that when they were flying through the comet and you could see the light from the comet reflecting off their eyes through the view screen, that was an awesome moment of lighting as well.
Yes. They use, oh my god, just like using everything the same. Like, we're recording this the day after this thing aired, so this is much more much fresher in our mind here.
Yes.
Using the comet thing again, we get to see the Farragut, which we knew Kirk was a captain of before the Enterprise or served on.
I forgot about that.
We saw La'an was over there. So Kirk got to still be here, but Pike was the reason why there's a Romulan war, a new one. Wow.
It didn't feel like it was solely Pike. So even though we just saw Balance of Terror 6 months ago, I had to go back to Memory Alpha and reread some of it. And what it seems like the difference was when there was just one ship chasing it through the comet, and the Romulans pulled that same stunt of coming up behind them, the Enterprise was able to avoid getting hit. So it's sort of a stalemate. But now with two ships, the Enterprise again avoided getting hit, but now there was a secondary target, and they were able to hit the Farragut. And I feel like that escalated things because now the sub commander was like, well, now we have to finish what we started.
Yeah, all these little things that changed. And Kirk wasn't quite the same. He was similar, but he wasn't quite the same as he was in the original series because he didn't have the experience on the Enterprise. That relationship with Spock. And so he wasn't the same, I don't want to say mature or experienced as he was as captain. So he had, I think he was slightly a little different. I can't really put to words what was off, not off, but like he wasn't the same Kirk from the Enterprise.
Well, different actor.
Yes, so he wasn't the same Kirk. And so he didn't have that. So he approached the problem slightly differently than he just approached things slightly differently, even if it was similar.
Yeah, he seemed very quick to seek a non-diplomatic resolution, which disappointed me.
It was very Captain Kirk, though.
I suppose, but I mean, granted, in the Balance of Terror, there was none of this 2-hour ceasefire, but I don't feel like he was quick to attack either, like Ortega's wanted to be in this episode. Even Kirk was like, let's follow a parallel course and see what happens. And ultimately, he offered at the end of Balance of Terror to beam the Romulans' crew over, if I recall, and the Romulans said, no, we have honor, this is how we die.
In another world, in another universe, could have been a friend.
Could be friends, yeah.
Man, and the only missed opportunity for this episode, apparently everyone else in the world thought it too. They could have had the same actor who played Sarek play the Romulan commander, because that's who it was in the original series.
Oh.
Mark Leonard.
Yeah, so Mark Leonard, of course, is dead, but they could have had the Sarek actor from Discovery.
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I was like being so clever when I thought this, and then look online, everyone else is thinking the same thing.
This is the first I've heard of it. I feel not clever for not having thought of it.
I was waiting for it to be him, and then it wasn't. It's like, oh wait, I get it. Okay, but
wow. Huh.
But man, that he still had the same reactions. Like like the commander was the same in both versions. Even if his sub commander was a jerk, he was in both versions too. Man, and it's like I think both our new Kirk and our our commander, who was unnamed in the original series, card game, the Star Trek card game, called him Kyrus, Sarek backwards. That was not official or anything like that, but he played that commander very well, I think, and had very similar attitude and so well done. And but this is a Pike episode still. And we haven't really talked about his role in this, having to make these decisions. And his trying to talk it out ended up being a terrible problem for the Federation, just like Discovery Captain Michelle Yeoh.
Giorgio.
She wanted to talk it out instead of the Vulcan hello, and they got into a Klingon war. Here, Pike wanted to talk it out, got into a war with Romulans.
Yep. If an alien species wants to go to war, they'll find a way. But I thought it was interesting when the Farragut got attacked. I expected Kirk to die because that would have everlasting impact on the timeline. All the times
I
Kirk
did
has
too.
saved Earth. And so I thought that's why Pike had to have the accident. And in the end, what they implied was it was not only to avoid the Romulan War, it was to save Spock.
It was all Spock.
Yeah, old Pike even said, the only chance we have of a lasting peace with the Romulans is with Spock. And there, he's referring to what we just saw in Discovery Season 3, Reunification Part 3.
Yeah. I wrote down, I was talking to Charlene Shar, without Spock, we have V'ger, we have the Whale Probe, no unification, no Navarre, a decimated star empire, Romulan star empire, and so much more. How pivotal Spock is a main character to the universe.
We also don't get the Kelvin universe.
Yes, which we even got to hear them hint at. Pike is asking Sam Kirk about his brother, and the slight mention it was they made the J.J. Abrams universe, the Kelvin universe, real because Sam Kirk is like, yeah, my dad served on the Kelvin.
Yes, I did hear that,
and that was the connection there. So Romulan mining ship with Borg tech never came back in time to make an alternate universe. Spock was important over there too. He helped bring Spock and Kirk over there.
Yep.
And so Spock is the main character of Star Trek.
Spock Trek. Yeah. One thing, though, is second season of The Orville. Are you an Orville fan?
Yeah, I'm watching season 3 and loving it.
Haven't seen it myself yet, but second season, as you'll recall, had a time travel episode where somebody goes back in time, changes one decision, and like all of the Federation collapses as a result. I felt like this was a little bit similar. The stakes were a little bit less high because I think Pike I think he knew that this wasn't like a permanent time shift. It was just a glimpse into a possible future, which nonetheless made it interesting to me that Spock was able to mind meld with him. And we saw briefly Spock's point of view, which implied to me that even though this was just sort of a time crystal vision, everything in it was somehow nonetheless real.
Yeah. Oh my god. Ethan Peck played Leonard Nimoy Spock so well. Just that emotionless version of him. It was a hard switch. You could tell between the Spock we know from Ethan Peck and Spock from Leonard Nimoy in those 7 years.
Although, despite being more Vulcan, and that's something else that you and I talked about last episode, he was more Vulcan in this episode. That's true. But I have before on this podcast celebrated male affection and lamented its absence. And in the scene where Pike and Spock were in the ready room, and Spock was like, I feel like I owe you a debt of gratitude, though I don't know for what.
Well, at the ending here.
Yeah. And Pike said, oh, you're right. They were back in the present at that point. I forgot. You're right. So nonetheless, Spock said that, and Pike said, you're very important to me. I wish Pike had hugged him, because that's how I was feeling in that moment. I was like, oh my God, I just want you two to hug.
I started crying.
I was nearly there.
That was oof. That was oof.
If they had hugged, that would have pushed me over the edge.
Yeah, it was still very powerful.
Yeah.
I loved it, and we even talked about Spock's emotional outburst that Nurse Chapel helped him reach in the last episode, in the Alien episode.
Oh yeah, with his rage and how it's making him weak.
Yeah,
or more.
But here, yeah, or Ortega filling in the role of Styles, being hating Romulans.
I noticed that. Stand down, Erica. She was very prejudiced in this episode.
Yeah, we don't know if something happened in those 7 years or somehow before. We don't know. We're intentionally not supposed to know. But she just played the role of Styles because they didn't want to recast Styles.
Did you notice when Pike first went to the bridge in the Time Crystal Future, and he's walking around the bridge, the two characters at the helm...
Vice versa.
Not only are they vice versa, but they're completely frozen. They're not moving, they're not blinking, they're not acknowledging him.
Oh yeah, they were so... It was very robotic.
Well, I think Pike was still settling into this time crystal vision. Like, things were not fully activated yet.
I forgot about that. I did notice that, and I forgot entirely. Like something was off. And maybe that was to help us viewers. But yeah, everyone was just standing straight ahead, not looking. And I kind of want to go back to see Balance of Terror. Is that how like Styles and Sulu sat too? Or was it the simulation, quote unquote, warming up? Or was this them portraying those two characters in the original?
I think it's
How
the
they
second.
acted.
I-
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I'm good. I look forward to trying to find that out.
Oh, speaking of comparisons with TOS, we heard Scotty's voice.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about that too. We got to hear Scotty.
Well, this is something that had not occurred to me, but again, former friend of the show, Kay, well, no, still a friend of the show, former guest of the show, said, did they take audio from TOS for this episode? And I looked in the credits because that's how they acknowledged it when they did it the same thing on Prodigy. And it doesn't say anything in the credits.
They had an actor for the arm. I think it was said engineer or something like that. I can't remember exactly 100% how they worded it. They didn't say Scotty.
But it wasn't the original actor's voice.
It was James Doohan, to my understanding. I could be wrong.
But he wasn't credited.
Understanding, but it was uncredited. Because I was reading an interview, they said something like they weren't prepared to cast Scotty yet, so they didn't. So they just used audio from the original series.
Okay.
I don't remember the source for that. But that's what I read last night or this morning.
Okay. So the credit in the credits was for the person whose arm we saw.
That's
but
what I'm
the
guessing.
voice was somebody else who was
Doohan.
not credited, which was James Doohan.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
A future will show if that's how it was, but I just remember that's what I read. So.
Anything else about the Balance of Terror aspect of this episode before we get to the cliffhanger finale season?
Actually, I think they brought that up in Ready Room. I haven't watched it yet. I think someone said they said it in Ready Room. There we go.
Okay.
But I'll find out later. That's all I got. I love this episode. I love the comparisons. Definitely go back and watch Balance of Terror if you have not seen it in a while. And after you've seen this one.
I can't imagine watching A Quality of Mercy without having seen Balance of Terror, which is probably how most people saw it.
Uh-huh.
But I just feel like so much would be lost.
It's made for the super nerds, it's built for the super nerds, but made for everyone.
Yeah.
And then number one,
Una gets arrested, just like at the end of Lower Deck Season 2, with the captain getting arrested.
Yeah. Wow. I wasn't sure they were going to go for that cliffhanger. And we don't know where number one is. We didn't know. She was only in the pilot episode, Menagerie. And was gone. And so now we might get an explanation. How is Pike going to get her out of this if he does?
Well, in the Time Crystal future, he did not. And he's been encouraged to not change the timeline. I mean, old Pike basically said, every time you change the timeline, Spock dies. So does that include freeing Una?
We don't know that. My hypothesis is that because of the war, he didn't have time to help save Una.
But the war was 7 years later.
Oh, that's right. We don't know. We don't know if maybe something happened where he couldn't. Something about him. We don't know. We're gonna find out.
Yeah.
We don't know if he's changing time or if this is always how it's supposed to happen.
Yeah. But are they gonna cast a new engineer to replace Hemmer? Are we gonna have a new cast person on the show next season? Are we gonna have a new number one, a new tactical officer? There's just so much.
I can answer some of that, but I'm not going to. But I think that this will be technically an answer. We're going to see a trial, and
okay.
I think all these actors are coming back except for Hemmer. I don't know that for sure. Well, I know Ortegas is there because Michelle's been talking about it on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
But I know some of the answers to what you asked. But
no spoilers.
When it comes to number one, I mean, she's going to be there because we got to see the resolution. And I think it's going to be a trial like Measure of a Man kind of thing.
I mentioned earlier in this podcast how anthrocentric the Federation is. This is what I was referring to because humanity had a really bad experience with genetic engineering, and now it's banned for all alien species in the Federation. That seems excessive.
We don't know that others didn't have the same problem. We've seen the Suliban caused issues. We've seen mostly towards the Federation or Earth Starfleet, but to others as well. We don't know the genetic history of all a couple hundred members. Genetics history.
But we do know that it's banned in the Federation for all alien species.
But we don't know if it's all. We know that Starfleet has a history with it, but we don't know the history with it for others. Like the Klingons, they had a serious issue with genetics because of the augments.
Yep.
And so I would say we can't answer that because I get the idea, but we just don't know enough about the 800, 700, 100, whatever they are, members.
Yeah.
It's always going to be nebulous, intentionally, because they'll just pull them out when we need them.
Yeah, I hope that she gets treated fairly because no negative repercussions came down on Bashir because he was augmented as a kid and had no say in the matter. You know, I don't know how much Una's augmentation was willful or just something her society did to her.
I can't wait to find out. I'm excited to find out.
I'm looking forward to season 2 as well. We don't know what the next Star Trek show to air will be. Usually Lower Decks starts in August. Oh. Lower Decks usually starts in August.
I think that's the idea. Everyone's kind of speculating that Lower Decks will be quote unquote soon, but we don't know when.
But we also have the second half of the first season of Prodigy. I don't know why it's just not the second season. And they finished filming season 5 of Discovery, right?
Yeah. Picard season 3 is done filming.
Oh, that's right. Oh, speaking of Discovery, so I've told you before about some of the fun quirks of my Paramount Plus subscription. Like, there was one point where every time I went to play an episode, it would show a single frame from the Strange New Worlds trailer where Pike is on a horse in Montana, and then it would play the episode. I got that multiple times. Well, now I'm experiencing something different, and this has happened after every single episode in the first season of Strange New Worlds. I watched the entire episode all the way through to the end of the credits, and when it gets to the end, it then skips to Discovery Season 4, the final episode where Admiral Vance and Tilly are in Federation headquarters, and Admiral Vance is saying, "They sure did. They sure did." And he clinks his glass with Tilly's.
It's so weird.
Every single time, 10 episodes in a row, Strange New Worlds ends, and I get Vance saying, "They sure did."
That is amazing end cap to every episode. And it's like him telling Tilly, "Oh man, I was looking through the old databases and guess what happened?" And then when he tells, she's like, "No way." And he's like, "They sure did."
Right?
Speaking of other things are going very long, but you wanted to bring up a little thing with Captain Kirk.
Yes. So
the real one, not the one who I thought portrayed Captain Kirk very well in this.
By the way, I thought the actor that played Kirk, although he did a fine job, I thought he was a little scrawny.
Yeah, he reminded me a lot of, as Shar said, reminded me a lot of younger Ace Ventura guy.
Jim Carrey?
Jim Carrey.
I
thought of a guy from SNL, but anyway, I thought he was fine. But yeah, it's a different actor.
I knew that they had cast a new Kirk for season 2 of Strange New Worlds. I didn't expect to see him in season 1.
It was a surprise.
But it does mean that we'll probably see him again.
Yeah, I think so.
Although, you know what? The previous episode, All Those Who Wander, like, I had friends who thought that was the finale because it seemed so final.
I know.
Like Hemmer died and everything. And then La'an went away and all this.
It did have a finality about it.
So maybe A Quality of Mercy was meant to be the season 2 season premiere.
I don't think so. I think it was always planned.
Okay. So what I wanted to say was I am a nomad. I move around a lot. And right now I'm in southwestern Vermont. And I am not too far from Ticonderoga, New York. Now, do you know what's in Ticonderoga?
Besides the pencil makers?
Correct.
Well, hold on.
Once I say it, you'll be like, "Oh, how did I not remember?"
Say a hint. That's on the tip of my tongue.
Oh gosh, I don't have any hints. I just have spoilers.
God, you can't give spoilers. You can't. No, it's okay.
Fan films?
Is that where the bridge is? The Enterprise bridge thing is at?
You're close. It is where Star Trek's New Voyages, aka Phase 2, was filmed.
Yeah, that's where they filmed. That's where you can take set tours.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry.
Yeah, so there was a fan series. They shot a whole bunch of episodes based on TOS. They recreated the original series set down to the millimeter, and now that set is available for tours.
Yes, wanted to see this. You gonna do it?
I did do it. Velda, who's been on the show, she and I went a couple of weeks ago, and we got to see the transporter room, sick bay, Dr. McCoy's office, captain's quarters, the bridge, and engineering, the rec room where where Spock would play his weird instrument, and where they had the trial for him in the cage. So we got to see all those things. We paid only an extra $20 maybe to have a photographer with a really nice DSLR follow us around. He took 150 photos.
Wow.
Some of them were very staged, and it was awesome because he knew just the right angles. He had all these stories of how they got the set pieces, and some of them, there was one thing that had actually been on TOS, another thing that had actually been on Enterprise, which is set before TOS, so it was not an anachronism. And yeah, it was awesome. I haven't posted those photos yet online, but I will be.
Awesome.
And I'm going back there next week because twice a year, William Shatner comes to visit. And so I have paid more than I should to get a photo with him and an autograph. I have autographs of every single cast member of TNG and some cast members of DS9, Enterprise, and Voyager. I have nobody.
I've seen many of these.
So yes, you have at my house back when I had a house. However, I have nobody from TOS, and those opportunities are becoming much fewer. So I figured I should get Kirk's or Shatner's autograph while I can. And so I'm going back to Ticonderoga, an hour away, next Saturday. And it's weird. The photograph is at 11 a.m., but the autograph is at 4 p.m. So I guess when you get to be that age, you need your naps.
Interesting. You get to be hanging out with the only captain who's been in space or near space, depending on your definition.
That's true. He went up in, not Elon Musk, but Jeff Bezos' thing, right?
Yes, in his very phallic-shaped rocket. Most rockets are.
I'm sure he loved it.
He did. Wow.
It's like death.
Oh, wow.
It's like looking into death, he said.
You can hear his reactions afterwards. I watched that interview. It's just like, wow.
Yep.
Wow. It was really good. That's really awesome for you. I think we're okay going a few minutes longer than normal because we're going to be a long break between episodes. But I had an opportunity to see Patrick Stewart years ago at Dragon Con. For me, I don't have the excitement of seeing these actors. And so I was like, I didn't want to go, but plus all the people. For me, I don't know. That excitement isn't that drive to see the actors isn't as strong. So I'm glad this opportunity's come up for you to get this moment.
Yeah, it's not that I hero worship or idol worship William Shatner. It's not that.
That's a very risky one to do.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, it's kind of just sort of to check it off my list. They sell at this Star Trek tour in the gift shop 8x10 glossies of William Shatner. So I'll just pick one. I'll pay $5. I already went to the dollar store and I bought a frame. And I am technically homeless, so I have nowhere to hang it up. I'll just put it in my storage unit with my other celebrity autographs that include people like Larry Storch and Robin Shue. And I'll have it. And
awesome.
Because, there will come a point where they're not going to be making any more of these.
That's one way to put it. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I agree with you. I'm not always necessarily excited to meet actors. There was only one, I had a really great time meeting Jonathan Frakes and Brent Spiner. They were fantastic. I loved meeting them. There was only one Star Trek actor I was actually nervous to meet, and I was surprised by that. And it was Connor Trenier, who played Trip on Enterprise. And I think the reason I was a little nervous is because he is so damn handsome, in my opinion. But that's it.
Keep your shirt on, Lieutenant.
Chief Engineer. Well, that's it for me.
All right, that's it for me. Thank you for joining us on this recap of Strange New Worlds, a show that we both loved and adored. I can't wait for season 2.
One thing I really enjoyed about Strange New Worlds is how many people got into it. I saw people on Twitter, in Slack, on Facebook who hadn't watched Discovery, Picard, Prodigy, or Lower Decks, all saying they were watching Strange New Worlds. They signed up for Paramount Plus just to watch Strange New Worlds, and they loved it. Sometimes they were introducing their partners for the first time ever, and sometimes they were like, my partner is not into Star Trek, and I don't care. I'm going to watch the show on my own. I'll let my partner stop me from watching Discovery. I won't let them stop me from watching Strange New Worlds.
I'm glad. This is a great introduction to Star Trek.
Yes. Anything else from you, Captain?
That is all. So, Captain Sabriel to the bridge. Hit it.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes and keep your hailing frequencies open by following us on Twitter @TransporterLock or subscribing to our podcast and email newsletter at transporterlock.com.